Con, where I had 3 panels. The first one is Crush It on Kickstarter. It was a workshop I held. The second was How to Build an Audience from Scratch with the wonderful Barbara Dillon, Madeline Holly Rossing, and Nick Marino. And this one with the wonderful Mike Wellman, moderated by Mary Bellamy, called Kickstarter versus Self-Funding. This was basically me and Mike debating the merits of self-funding your project versus kickstarting your project. And what's really interesting is I thought it was going to be about begging for money, and that was going to be the core element. But the core element actually turned out to be something very different. I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to hear it for yourself, but it ended up being a very interesting discussion. Before we get into it, I want to remind you that my new course, Business of Art, Volume 1, which has over 8 hours of content, is available at thebusinessofart.us/volume 1. Now, this is every hard lesson, every Kickstarter mini-season, every ranterlude. Everything I did for the first 100+ episodes of this show, pretty much up until last week. I took out all the commercials and just delivered value. It's value after value after value. All this bullshit preamble, that ain't there. It starts with value and ends. Well, you know that bullshit at the end? It stops right before then. So all you're getting is value after value after value on a constant loop. I know our archives are janky, and I know our intros and outros, so the audio is a little bit janky. I actually had my phone in the audience about 4 rows back, so it does sound very far away, and I'm sorry for that. It's all I can do. I needed to get all 3 people with good audio. There's a ton of value here. If you can't get over the fact that the audio is a little bit janky, that's okay. Just go on to the next one. I won't be offended. All right, Mary and Mike, let's get into it. Which one's better, self-funding or Kickstarter? Take it away.
How do you guys want to do this? How are we doing? You're going to present the case for Kickstarter, and I'll present the case against, and then we take crowd stuff?
Oh.
Okay. Don't put the moderator aside.
We'll introduce ourselves first, so everyone knows who we are, in case we don't.
I don't know who you guys are. How about you guys go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
You go first.
Hi, my name is Mary Bellamy. I've done work with My Little Pony, Womanthology. I've been published in over 150 comic books. I self-fund my own projects, but I'm in the middle because I'm reaching a breaking point between having so many books that I might be kickstarting. So I'm open to either side. And I'll be the moderator to stop us two from looking at each other. So
we're good, actually. And our friend Audra, she lives in Chicago, so we'll be fine.
Oh yeah, she's way far away.
Well, that's who he is.
Oh no, Mike first. I'm Mike Wellman. You might know me. Owner of the Comic Bug. Self-published about 20 individual comics. Also written for Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, World of Warcraft. Faith No More, Rock and Roll Biography comic. And we are upstairs at booth 1133, hawking our guns a-blazing. So, yeah. Thank you.
Can we not get an applause for Mary?
The books that I self-publish are called Facts, The Truth Can Be Strange, and Ahek, The Angel Chronicles, about a girl who winds up in the underworld trying to escape from evil bunnies and killer teddy bears.
Yay. So I'm Russell Nohelty. I run Wannabe Press, and I have done this. I'm on my 5th Kickstarter right now. This pile right here are all issues that I have kickstarted on some level. And then all of these ones over here are ones that I've self-funded. So I have been on both sides and utilized both, but I am completely open to Kickstarter, obviously, because I've done 5.
What makes you decide which one to self-publish and which one to Kickstart? I mean, how do you go back and forth?
If you look at the quality, the overall quality of the books that I self-publish, they're usually things that I've written, drawn myself, or they're small. So for instance, in order to get this book, Little Bird and Little Worm, 20 pages of art done and printed, it was about $600.
Yeah.
I can handle that. This sketchbook, was just sketches that I did while I was drawing my graphic novel, and it was basically free. It was my time, and then whatever it cost. So it cost me a couple $100 to print. Same thing with all of these, including this issue of Paradise, which I completely self-funded. And I self-fund the print runs of our new hardcover novels because I already went to Kickstarter once for them. I don't feel the need to go back a second time. Like, I kickstarted the run.
So you basically do the Kickstarter to pay talent to work on the books, and then you handle printing yourself? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. With the novels, with the 2 novels that I've done, I wanted to test the new market. So I went to the bigger novels that I've done, like my father didn't kill himself and Spaceship Broken Needs Repairs.
Mm-hmm.
They required a lot of editorial.
Yeah.
So I always, with everything, pay up front.
Good.
And then I go to Kickstarter mostly for print funds. So, for instance, with Katrina Hates the Dead has cost me in the realm of about $20,000 so far.
Wow.
And I raised $8,500 on Kickstarter. So that basically paid for the print run. And the print run, I sold 200 copies. And then I've sold another 600 or so copies since then. And that financed the ability for me to go back to China for like a 2,000 unit run. And the same thing with Ichabod. Ichabod cost me roughly $15,000 right now.
Okay.
And I raised $5,500 on Kickstarter. And then that is now earned out, and I went back to China in the same run of the Katrina and bought another 1,000 of those.
So are your books generating profits now after the Kickstarter's done, everything's paid for? How do you sell them? You go to conventions?
Mostly conventions. So with conventions, they are the best way to go about building a brand from nothing, because you can't really, there's no market on Amazon, or very tough market for comic books on Amazon, and if you're unknown. Like, people like Jim Zub can put out a self-funded book and pretty much get Amazon pre-orders. But the reason I go to Kickstarter, honestly, is I went there because I desperately needed to do a print run the first time. Like, I had no money to do a print run. I had paid around $10,000, $8,000 to $10,000. I don't remember the exact number for art, and I couldn't pay another $5,000 to get books. I couldn't. I physically didn't have $5,000. Do
you have like a regular job, like a day job?
I did then, but it didn't. Like, I had a publisher. So I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but I had a publisher of Viper Comics, and Viper Comics did the ebook. And they told me that if I wanted to do the print, I had to pay for it. And I said, I'm not going to do that. You're my publisher. Fucking pony up the money. And they said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, then I want the rights back. And he said, okay. And I was stuck with a bill for $5,000. Either I had to invest $5,000 of money I didn't have after paying $8,000. Let's just call it $8,000.
Now, Kickstarter was around at this point?
Yeah, it was 2014.
Yeah, so a lot of people because I'm a really supportive, loving person when it comes to independent comic creators. A lot of people say, why do you hate Kickstarter so much? And you reminded me of an example why. I had a pitch that was picked up by a company called ComX. You guys know them? And they were like, yeah, the guy was all gung ho, and he's a friend of mine, so I won't say too much. I guess I named this company, but and he's like, yeah, we're going to do a Kickstarter. And I was like, well, you guys are publishers. No, I could just do that myself. And I do self-publish, and when I oversee projects for other people, like Guns Ablazing is a unique situation because me and Raphael are 50-50 partners in it. So, I don't get paid to write it, he doesn't get paid to draw it. We make it, I print it, he pays for a booth, we go to a convention, we make a lot of beer money, and we have a great time. So that's my publishing method. But when I oversee projects for people where an artist is being paid or whatever, I edit the books, I break it down into segments. So like every 8 pages, the artist gets paid. You don't want to pay an artist everything up front or everything at the end, because even a 24-page comic, it's a lot of work to make a comic book. So every 6 to 8 pages, the artist is getting paid. It keeps them moving, keeps them motivated, and you don't feel that budgetary weight so much. you know, at the beginning or end. Pace yourself. If you can set up a way, be it, you know, having a job or being wise with investing your money or whatever, to have a steady stream of income, and that's really, your art doesn't suffer. Like, yeah, go ahead.
I can speak to this because I also do children's book illustration. That was my main job, and what I was finding is that I do print on demand because unfortunately I can't pony out $5,000 for, you know, even if it is 1,000 copies, I can't afford it. So what I'd end up doing is doing my books anyway, and I would end up paying like, you know, $500 for 100 copies or whatever it was, and then take those for each convention. And I think it works well to a point until you start to get too many things or books that are too large. So you end up in the middle ground. So like with you, like you're saying, you know, you have thousands of dollars to work with, and that's awesome. Then you're saying that you're ending up raising it. So I'm kind of in the middle.
Well, when I started, I worked for minimum wage at Jeffrey's Comics, and my first comic was Mac Afro. And what started me was I was broke, and my uncle passed away, and I inherited $5,000. And I was like, okay, I'm going to invest this in something I've always wanted to do, be a writer. So I published Mac Afro. I did conventions. I hired models, bikini models for the booth. So I was really stupid, right? I was just like, it was ridiculous. And so I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but now I've been doing it long enough that there's a body of work there to draw, and you have an amazing body of work that you can draw from and do shows and, you know, probably do quite well. So, and like, you know, I just put it back on in the stage show. We do a convention, you know, there's certain things I'd like to teach you guys about how to run a booth and how to present your booth. If you guys get a chance, come up to booth 1133 and see, you know, the setup, and I can tell you why, what, and wherefore. Michael, you saw it. I think he liked it.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, that's the business of comics. The business is being self-sustaining, being, you know, profitable, hopefully, but if not, prepared to reinforce yourself. I mean, not everything I do is a hit. Guns Blazing is not really a hit, but it does well. So
Right, but
yeah.
so on the other side of this
Yes.
equation, how I use Kickstarter and how I recommend everyone use Kickstarter is as a pre-order platform. Kickstarter is way too advanced now, and people are way too savvy to generally back something and fund something that there's not a prototype for. And the pre-order system has been in publishing, in the publishing world, since the dawn of publishing. It has existed on the highest levels in Simon & Schuster. It exists on the lowest levels of local small presses. Every single publisher tries to get a good pre-order number. It happens with solicits. Like with solicits, when solicits happen, if the pre-order number is not high enough, they don't make the book.
Right.
Diamond did that to a lot of the small press companies I was with. Basically, minimum.
I mean, Marvel and DC does this. We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Marvel and DC have done hundreds of solicits that never hit the shelf.
Well, the difference with Marvel and DC is, you know, if they don't hit like, I don't know, 20,000 copies, they cancel the book.
Right, but if the Kickstarter, if you consider that Kickstarter is a pre-order platform and you have to raise $10,000.
But Kickstarter is not. That would be ideal if that were the case, but it's not solely a pre-order platform.
It's not necessarily a pre-order platform. But here's the.
Maybe there needs to be a new site.
So here's the example that I cite. If you take all businesses that have ever existed and put them under one company, just one, we call it Stickstarter.
Okay.
It's every company from McDonald's to Amway and everyone that's failed. You will find that a large percentage of businesses that exist, including production companies, including publishing companies, including fast food joints, operate in bad faith and don't know what they're doing. Amway works almost exclusively, though not all exclusively, on on a pyramid scheme where you beg your family to buy things from you. That is Amway's model. However, that is not McDonald's model, and if they exist underneath the same umbrella, then you have to blame, then I guess my point is you can't blame McDonald's for what Kickstarter does. Even though Kickstarter is a platform.
I blame Kickstarter for sort of usurping creator confidence? Like say you have a great idea, you put it on Kickstarter, it doesn't get funded. Do you still do it? I mean, you're a creator. Do you go forward even though the people have spoken and?
Well, there's also other places like Indiegogo.
Right, any of them.
But I wouldn't give up on your stuff just because the internet isn't there.
Right.
But maybe you
Or
do.
maybe you're
because-
not good at networking, you know, or.
But if you need a bunch of money to do a project
Mhm.
and you don't get it, it is like any other business. Okay, what went wrong? You have to analyze it and say, I needed 5,000, only raised 1,000. Is it because my audience isn't big enough? Is it because there's no audience for this product? Like, you are more than welcome to continue to do books that are unprofitable.
Right.
But if you want to sustain a business, you have to be profitable. Like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example in all of this, it's not just Kickstarter. These books, these softcover books that I made, these ones, cost me roughly $7 to make, and I sell them for $20. You know, roughly May or June of this year, I went back and I was like, I physically can't keep doing. I can't do conventions. Like, this is unprofitable to sell this book for $20. I have to find a way to sell books for more and make them for less. Otherwise, I can't keep making it. It literally, I cannot continue a business that works that way. So I went and I made the investment to go and get these books, which cost $3, and I can sell for $30. That is a business maneuver you have to make. I know these books sell. I know they sell because Kickstarter told me that they sell, and then I went to conventions and they sell. It's my best seller on a table by $3 margin. So I saw Kickstarter as a validation method. I saw that this did validate, and I was able to invest money that I pretty much didn't have. It took all the profits away in New York because I saw through Kickstarter and through sales at conventions that it sells. However, this book, which we also kickstarted, sells not that great at conventions. The book that we're crowdfunding now raised its money, but from 56 backers. Like, that's not something I'm going to invest a lot of money in,
Right.
because it didn't validate. Now, I can say to you, I can get 1,000 copies of Spaceship Broken Needs Repairs, which is, you know, our new sci-fi book, and I can beg and hope and pray that a bunch of people buy it, but it doesn't bear out. The numbers don't bear out, and that came specifically from Kickstarter. I can see that currently 56 backers have pledged $1,477. Comparatively, 156 backers backed this. Comparatively, 300 backers backed Katrina Hates the Dead. So if I bear that out, I can say, well, this is going to really suck on a convention table. If this many few people backed this project comparatively to my last novel, and my last novel doesn't sell very well on a table or on my site, this is going to be a nightmare.
Would you consider yourself an independent creator? Because it sounds like you're very beholden to the tool that is Kickstarter and the success and failure of Kickstarter campaigns.
I'm beholden to the success and failure of a pre-order validation method.
Called Kickstarter.
Called whatever you want to do it.
Where did you go?
Yeah, so here's the weird thing. So I did this book. I'll give you another example. This book, Gherkin Boy, the Dollar Destiny Activity book, I wrote and drew this book.
Yeah.
I put it out there assuming I would sell one copy. It has no business selling 300 copies. It outsells this book that I kickstarted.
You're an amazing Kickstarter campaigner.
But this is Kickstarter. This is a
right.
self-funded book.
How did you sell 300 of them?
I've sold them at conventions.
Oh, okay.
I sold 156 of this novel, which is better than this. It's better. However, this book has earned out enough that, and next time I go to get a large run of books, this is going to be included because I have seen that people buy it. And if you're going to build a successful business, and I do this full time, should disclose, I also own a Verizon dealership, but this is 90% of what I do. You must be beholden to some sort of pre-order system. It can't be a wig and a prayer. And Kickstarter, whether you're doing it as I'm trying to raise money to make a book, or I'm trying to raise money to print a book, is an amazing pre-order platform. It can tell you before you make anything, before you do anything, whether you can expect your book to be successful. There are books that you can make that are pre-order and fail in the open market. It happens.
I think that as a creator, when you want to make a book, you have a story you have to tell. In my case, guns a-blazing. You have to invest in it with everything you have, as far as your creative energy, your spirit, your finances. It's a really rewarding journey. Like when we started Guns a-Blazing, we printed 1,500 of them. We did Comic-Con. I think we sold like maybe 150 to 200. I don't keep numbers. I just pack a box and go to a show. But I'm not going to be beholden to the audience. I already know when I start a project how long it's going to be. This is going to be a 6-issue series, and it does gain traction. We don't do Kickstarter campaigns. We go out there and we put on a good fucking show, and we sell a lot of books that way. And people want to check out the other things we're doing. They're excited about the things we have coming up. I don't have like a shotgun of ideas all over the place. You want to focus on the story you want to tell. I have a lot of other ideas I want to do, but I think funding is kind of the last thing you need.
I think the idea is the first thing, but that is no way to build a sustainable and grow and have the ability to grow a business.
I've been doing this for 19 years.
I know, but
I think that both methods have their pros and cons.
Somebody has a question.
Yeah,
where do your backers come from on Kickstarter? Do you have, is it social media? We hear so often that you need a social media presence.
yeah. So on Kickstarter, I sell. So the question was for people that are listening online later. Where are your crowds coming from? It comes from it's an audience. There are audience building strategies that you can use to build your social media platform, to build your brand, to build your mailing list, to build your website, to build all sorts of things so that you have an audience before you launch. As my friend famously says, you can't crowdfund without a crowd. So it's about building the crowd first. And here's another way that Kickstarter is a fantastic validation platform. Let us say that you want to make a book and you don't know how much you can raise. You have no idea because this is your first one. You have no data set. You can use Kickstarter, do it for $500 or $1,000 or whatever it'll cost you to make a book, and you might find you've only made $300. And that might not be because the book isn't great. It may be because you have no audience, or you misjudged how many people want the book inside your audience. However, you might see that your $1,000 book raises $5,000. And in that case, you know that there is a massive audience. You may print another run, go back on a second issue immediately. But that all comes from the fact that you're able to validate the audience. I do subscribe that you have to have that you have to do it for the passion. Like you have to have passion for the project that you do. However,
have you had anything distributed like through Diamond or?
No, I don't do that.
How come? It's the only comic distributor in the U.S.
No, it's not. I'm a comic distributor in the United States. So I'll do 50 shows if I have to. And Ingram, because I do all novels, I do all graphic novels. I don't do floppies. Ingram is a much better distributor for my needs than Diamond is.
So you're an Ingram then?
I'm an Ingram, and there are many other distributors that also are better for graphic novels. If you want to do a bookstore market, bookstores you can't do it.
I mean, this is a comic book group here, so if you do want to build an audience, first thing you want to do is get your project, start getting it done, and then ideally just you submit your book to Diamond, which is the only distribution company for comic books in the U.S. There used to be three, but there's just Diamond now.
I disagree with this statement.
Okay, but it's a fact.
I mean, it is a fact that Diamond is the only distributor. It is not a fact that the only.
I'm not saying
that
you can
best way to
but
build
I'm trying to
an
help you
audience.
get a bit bigger audience. So you submit it to Diamond. Hopefully they like it, and this is if you're self-publishing, and then you get accepted into their catalog. And every comic shop in the United States gets this catalog called Preview. Now, this is the business of comics. Then you get pre-orders, and it's up to you to promote your book, let people know. Call comic shops. There's a list called the Master List, which is all the comic shops in the United States. I will say most comic book retailers are horrible, horrible people and don't want to talk to you. But there's some good ones out there.
It's about 250.
Yeah.
Statistically, like who will actually talk to your indie people.
Yeah, so I mean, I helped Richard with Elephant Man. He had a bargain price trade paperback come out, and oh man, it's like they're just waiting around for something to jump on. But anyway, that would be a good way to try to if you wanted to do the so-called old-fashioned traditional route. Yes, go ahead.
Hang on, I need to address this because I've actually done multiple signings in your store, Mike.
Yes.
And it's great. I have 2 copies of that. I've sold dozens of books in your store when I've been there.
Yeah.
I still have 2 books. I still have 2 books at Ichabod.
Yeah, we have 4.
And there's literally 0 people that have ever gone in to buy that book, even though it's on the shelf. And it comes down.
I actually had it on the counter last week.
Okay.
Like right next to it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're an independent creator, unless you have an image or something on your binding, or you're somebody that is known, almost nobody. I'm not saying nobody. I have sold a couple. We're in 70 stores in Southern California now, and I call everyone every few months.
It is true what you say. I mean, they don't know to come seek it out.
Because it's not image and it's not a thing. However, people do go to Kickstarter to find independent books. There is a marketplace for it. There are people that literally spend hours at night on Kickstarter looking at cool comic book properties.
You have a question here?
Yeah, in regards to Diamond, I was once distributed through Diamond for my book. And I can tell you they're not exactly the most friendliest to the small guy. No. And they don't give you FOC, which makes it a lot harder for you to market your book to shops and to the comic press. So whereas Marvel, DC, the big independents, get 3 weeks to get final orders before their books hit the shelves.
Right.
You're given 8 weeks. So basically, if you don't have your ducks in a row in advance, no one's going to know your book is out. And by the time your first book comes out, and they've already pre-ordered your second book to half as many, even though you might end up getting a sellout or something, and it just ends up being
it's tricky. I'm not saying it's not tricky. Yeah.
And if your book stays on the shelf, I'm sure you can speak to this. If you get your first order and then nobody buys that first order, the chances that you get a third issue is very negligible.
But
right?
we do live in an era, and I can attest to this too, that a lot of people do buy independent comics. What's the guys at Stranger Comics? They're building a huge audience. It's possible. I mean, yeah, you just unfortunately. But you have to get a buzz going on your.
But a large part of that, not a large, but they're a great company. But they also have the Rude, who did their book breakout book. So like they got that person at a time in her career when she was taking off. So that definitely helped build their audience. What I'm saying is, you're probably not going to get Rude to write your book.
And then there's Black Mass Comics that had blown up with 4 kids in a bank.
Yeah, I believe it. I think their first comic was a Kickstarter.
Might have been, I don't know. And again, here's my thing about. Sorry?
It was.
My thing about Kickstarter is, for me, it's a filter, and I don't support Kickstarter campaigns. I don't share. It could be my best friend. It could be anybody. Everybody's treated equally. But if you get your book done through Kickstarter, by all means, come to my store, and once you have a book in your hand, you have my full 100% support.
And this is we were talking about this with another distributor yesterday, and he said Kickstarter is antithetical to the retail model. It's antithetical to the Kickstarter model, to the retail model. They work in separate tandem. I disagree with this. I believe that Kickstarter can get you pre-orders of real books, just like you want in your hand, that you can then use to be successful in the retail market. The main point is that Kickstarter and other pre-validation methods, it doesn't have to be Kickstarter, it can be anything that you use, are important to know which of your passion projects to pursue. They can help you build an audience. They can help show what books are great. I love every book that I've ever done. However, it is a fact that Katrina Hates the Dead is the book that keeps my company afloat. It outsells, without the validation method of Kickstarter, and the sales of Katrina, my company would not exist. It allows me to do My Father Didn't Kill Himself. It supports Ichabod. However, it is because I can validate the fact that it was successful. I got people to like it. I ordered it, and people bought it in a store, which is the way that every publisher has ever worked for the history of time. That it's from Simon & Schuster down to Black Mask.
Any Soundgarden fans in the house? Anybody like Soundgarden? So you know their story? They were in Seattle coming up, and every member of the band, I think there were 4 members, you know, 4? 5, okay, a lot of them. They were all, they all worked in kitchens. They were dishwashers, they were busboys, and Alice in Chains and all the other guys would make fun of them, like, what are you guys, you know, what are you doing, you sellouts, like these day jobs and stuff. And I read their biography, and things, you know, you read sometimes it sticks with you, and Kim Thale said, yeah, you know, we had these day jobs, and we couldn't always perform at every concert because one of us had to work or whatever. But when it came to making our albums and when it came to making decisions artistically, nobody told us what to do. They were beholden to nobody. And, you know, they operated like that for many years.
But they are beholden to their audience.
No.
They are beholden to the people that buy their records.
I'm not beholden to my audience.
Okay, well,
I mean, I like my audience, and I think my audience, but I'm not beholden.
so, yes.
I think the point he's trying to make is just that you have to have consumers. You can't make a product and say a book without something.
Yeah, that's true, but you don't have to crowdfund it to get consumers. There's so many ways to build an audience.
Yes, but you, go ahead, sorry.
How do you self-fund? Where does the money come from?
A day job, like Soundgarden. So, by the way, I'm not going to say name names, but we had that Facebook conversation the other day, and this is, again, like just puzzles and baffles me about what I'm going to call the Kickstarter mentality. This gentleman, who's a friend of mine, stated that, you know, I do things the easy way by having a day job and paying for the books myself, and he's doing things the hard way because he kickstarts. Yes.
This is more directed at Mary. Have you ever done a Kickstarter?
I have not yet. Basically, I'm to the point where I have 9 graphic novels, and they're each 50 pages, self-funded. So I'm at a point where I'm wanting to compile. So right now, my strategy is to put a big chunk of my stuff online so people can read a sample to see if they want to get interest in it. And then I'm going to start getting a bunch of my artist friends who do pinups and some promotional stuff. And then I'm probably going to approach a Kickstarter because honestly, I don't have $6,000 to just slap down to, you know, get something from China. Because that's what I ultimately want to do. That's why I'm stuck doing San Diego Comic-Con as my main show. Right now, I'm kind of in a hybrid situation where I self-fund, but this last year, my printing costs are getting to the point where I started to pre-order. So at that point, it makes more sense for me to start going to a Kickstarter model because at least, if anything, I don't have to say, I need $10,000. I can take $5,000 on my own and say, hey guys, I'm already half funded, can you help me fund the other half? So that's probably, I'm just weighing my options at that point, but that's probably what I'm going to end up doing.
Yeah, and I will say that.
I'm going to finish real quick. So, and by the way, I'm terrible with my money, but what I do with self-funding, I have a day job. It recently has become pretty lucrative, but it hasn't always been that way. And like I said, I used to work for minimum wage. I knew I wanted to make a comic. I knew it was going to take a certain amount of time to have it drawn, have it lettered, and I would just, you know, squirrel away a couple $100 whenever I had a couple extra $100. And before you know it, you know, by the time everything is done, all the lettering and everything's done, there's the money you've saved to publish your book and publish it independently, you know.
Right, but that doesn't.
So out of curiosity, Mike, you know, I've known each other for
a couple years, yeah.
Is it kind of like the Archie Comics issue with you?
That was another thing, yeah. Well,
it affects your brand.
Well, when Archie said they were going to do a Kickstarter, yeah, I do feel that there's an amount of erosion in the industry by all the Kickstarters, and you know, you guys know my pet peeve, like just constantly getting hit. Like, I'm a busy guy. Like, I work 50 hours a week. I do this on my own. I don't ask people for help. I am barraged with somebody will friend me, hey, how's it going? Oh, hey, I want to tell you about my Kickstarter. It's like, Jesus Christ, really, again? And, friends that have disappeared for 6 or 7 years that reappear, it's like, oh, man, how you been, and I think it's because of the position I'm in. I'm a comic shop owner, and I'm friends with a lot of indie creators. And they don't, yeah.
I think I can agree with you there on the point that if you're an established business like Archie Comics, you shouldn't be doing a Kickstarter. If you're an independent creator, a webcomic artist, or somebody like that, go for it. I think that's a good thing to do. But if you're like a giant company, you should put yourself out there, say, if I don't think this product will sell, maybe I shouldn't do it. But if I think it will, then go for it.
And I had a person call me yesterday, 2 days ago, and say, I need to do a Kickstarter for a school. And I said, well, why? You fundraise all the time. Why are you going to crowdfunding for this thing? So it's not ready for all people. And yes, I'm conceding that there are bad faith actors and people that don't know what they're doing on the platform. My point is that even for the smallest, newest creator, Kickstarter builds immediate authority if you back. Even if you do a $100 Kickstarter, even if you do a $1 Kickstarter, having that success shows that at least one human being bought your book, and you can prove that they bought your book. And
there's nothing more exciting than putting a book out without knowing, is this going to work? Is this, do people want this?
I would never, ever, 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 ever tell anybody. Dude, Brandon right there, I'm just raised a $20,000 Kickstarter. He's not going to put $20,000 into a thing and I'll wing it a prayer. I want to know that.
Why do you need to know? Just do what's in your heart and make it.
Because everybody can't afford it to absorb the risk and totally bomb.
And so
every time I do my stuff at San Diego Comic-Con, I'm like, please God, let me sell all the copies. And I've been doing slowly better because I've built my audience for about 9 years now. But yeah, there's a lot of us that if we took $1,000 hit, that would really hurt. So, I don't think that you should throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes.
Are you saying that you think consumers are going to ruin your product and your dream by being involved?
No. Well, maybe, but no. I'm just saying the way I create the stuff that we create. Raphael and I, we didn't know. I mean, we called the book Guns A-Blazing because we were at San Diego Comic-Con with, his Somnambulo, and I had whatever I had that year, probably gone south or whatever. And, starting to feel the weight of how big Comic-Con had become. So we said, we're going to do a book, we're going to go out Guns A-Blazing. And that was the origin of the name. And we, it's time-traveling cowboys. Who's going to read that, And so what I'm saying is, maybe mentally speaking, it's exciting to make something. You don't know if it's going to flop or succeed.
I think that it's exciting to make this thing together. When you do Kickstarter or anything, when I'm making a thing, we have a secret Facebook group. If you email me about the next book that we're doing, we want people to be involved and get excited. We want you, the fans of us, or even people that know us, to say, I love this, or I hate this, or I don't know about this. We want to make a thing together. And that, I think, is the part of Kickstarter that I like, or any crowdfunding, is you are an integral part of making this thing. When people say they backed our Kickstarter, when people say they backed a Kickstarter of mine, I can say, when they say they backed Ichabod, I can say, oh man, thank you so much. This book that you helped fund launched my career, and now I can do this full time. We actually have sold out of this book and had to go printing, and it's because of you, partially. It's a small part. Katrina allows me to do this full time. Well, hopefully my next book will allow me to do this.
But each time you do it, you have to crowdfund, right?
Each time I do this, I want to crowdfund.
Okay.
But
say you did a Kickstarter and it didn't. What do they call it? You didn't fund. Would you still do the book, or you wouldn't do the book then?
It depends on the book. I probably would do the book. Probably would, but I would for sure know. I'm probably going to print a very, very small amount of Spaceship Rogue needs repairs. Very small amount. Because again, It's not about how much money we raised. It's about the fact that we only got 56 people so far backing it. Like, there is no reason for me to go to get 1,000 copies of this book. Whereas if we had raised $10,000, I probably would have said, well, shit, I'm going to go to freaking get 1,000 copies of these things because they clearly are selling. So with books, with certain books, you will know. I know for a fact that if I buy 1,000 copies of this in hardcover, they will sell in the next 2 to 3 years. The same thing with other, because I've witnessed it. I've witnessed the fact that that people buy it. I've witnessed the fact that people come up and ask me about this book and say, when is there going to be more? And I say, there's not going to be more, but it's coming in hardcover. And they want to buy this book. There are people that are drawn into this book. There are people that forever, for the rest of the fact I'm alive, have a special thanks in this first page because they made this book happen. Everyone made this book happen, but they got a special thanks in this book. I think that when you do crowdfund, and do whatever you want. I'm not going to convince anyone. I'm not going to convince anybody to do anything, but by doing the crowdfunding part of this and going to Kickstarter, it is not creating a bubble. It's not secretly doing what you want. It's making a product that we all make together. And that is, to me, I'm an extrovert. So this may be an extrovert-introvert conversation, I don't know, but I want you to tell me what you think. I want you to be invested in what we do.
And what I'm saying is that Kickstarter is not the only way you can do it. A lot of people, I think they feel that... Right. So consider the other options and think, well, maybe I can do this on my own and it'd be 100% me, and I didn't make bookmarks and buttons and backpacks to go along with it. Yes?
I think part of it is someone who's gone through a bunch of things is that as much sweat equity you could put in the project, the better. The less people you have to hire to get things done, the better and more chances of your thing getting made. So as someone trying to juggle multiple artists and creators, that just adds a lot more stress to a situation. So whatever you're working on, at least be your own writer or your own artist. That will help you tremendously.
And doing it, like you said, on a smaller scale at the first time around, because you're going to learn, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to learn. And that's another thing that frustrates me about Kickstarter is that, a lot of the people on there don't know what's lying ahead, with, like you said, with the shipping problem that you have, and you guys know Mark Andrew Smith, Sullivan Sluggers. It was a nice book, and it raised a ton of money, and he knew my position on Kickstarter and stuff, so he didn't contact me until he had the books, and he pre-sold me a couple cases of the book because he needed, I didn't know this at the time, but he didn't have the money to ship to his backers. So I started carrying the book at the Comic Bug, and this customer came in and got mad at me because I had the book and he had backed the project. He's like, why don't I have this? Well, how'd you get this? And I was like, I ordered it from Mark. So
I'm so happy you talked about Mark Andrew Smith because he just finished his 5th Kickstarter from Thailand, and now he's successfully raised 5 things. He's got 5. He's got World Conquerors.
And he screwed over James Stocco. You should Google Mark Andrew Smith plus James Stocco because I would not operate like that young man does.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good story. You guys, write that down. James Stocco, artist of Sullivan Sluggers, and why I will never work with Mark Andrew Smith again.
I'll just interject with positive. I will say that I have found quite a few awesome comic series on Kickstarter that I probably never would have seen. People who ended up having webcomics, and because I found their book, I went back to their webcomics and they timed it in, and then those people later became a larger name. So I think, there are seriously negative things, like there are people who have funded a Kickstarter and took out the money and resulted in that one guy.
8%. 8%.
I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying it's point counterpoint. But every single thing has risk. There's always going to be some person, either whether they're self-funded, that has gotten orders from people and taken out the money to. It's just the risk of any kind of business.
And when it comes to risk, I take pride in that, I didn't ask anybody to help me launch my dream.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think a lot of people.
You're supposed to be a moderator.
Point each one, and everyone has.
I wanted to ask, Mike.
Yes.
Is your primary contention with Kickstarter not the fact that you're raising money, but perhaps how Russell is using it to gauge the audience for the popularity of a particular book?
Yeah, I mean that. I have a few issues. The main issue is just the constant barrage of requests that come my way, and then when I say no, they say why? Why not? What's wrong with this? And then have to explain, and it turns into this thing, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Like, I'm agreeing with you. I gotta ask. Can some other? I would like to ask other people have questions because right now it seems like a conversation between us, Brandon, and Dwayne. So let's get some other people in here. But
over here.
But hang on. But I want to. But we can agree on that.
Yeah.
We can agree on the fact that like you shouldn't be begging. That you should like. However,
So I'm allowed to have the opinion that Kickstarter is annoying.
You are. And like
that's my experience.
And I fervently agree
I'm not
with
attacking
this
you.
thing. I fervently agree with this point.
So
Yes.
the gentleman back there had a question. Yes.
I've done a Kickstarter. I've worked on, bless you, I worked on a film for over 13 years that Mike actually is in, on comic books. And I tried a Kickstarter, and I didn't make my goal. And I think what I would tell people is make sure that you know exactly how much money you need ahead of time, and to really break it down to what your ask is, because I probably asked too much, and my goal was a little too high, and maybe that was part of it. I didn't have an audience, so I was trying to build my audience. I had a film that had people like Stan Lee and Frank Miller and all these great people in it, and the other thing I would say as far as something is just really do your diligence on which crowdfunding that you use, because Kickstarter takes a percentage, Indie doesn't. So, do your due diligence and really kind of get all that in order before. The other thing I would say, too, is, you give people things, right? They donate, you give them things. Be careful, because what happened with me is all of a sudden I had to figure out, wow, if I'm going to give all these gifts away, I'm going to spend so much money on shipping this stuff that it's going to eat away at my revenue. So
we're doing a panel. I'm doing a workshop tomorrow at 12 o'clock called Crushing on Kickstarter, which we discuss all of those things. I will say this is a perfect example of if you don't raise the funds, if you don't raise funds, you can still decide to go ahead with the project if you believe in it.
He finished it already.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just.
My point is, you learn from. I don't know how much did you ask for it.
I asked for like $60,000.
Okay. How much did you raise?
We raised like 38.
Okay, so you knew you thought your audience would give you $60,000, and you realized it was only worth currently $38,000. So you can go back and say, well, what do I need to do? What is the reason why this is not a functional? I need to spend more time building my social media presence, building my mailing list, building my website. That is the exact positive purpose for Kickstarter, because you can then take that information and use its data. Like, data is great.
Right.
Data is the best thing you could possibly have.
How did you finish your movie though?
I did it all on my own. I actually, my wife and I refinanced our place so I could come up with money, because I just felt so strongly about it. The other thing I would say is that don't start from scratch. Like, I went out there and I filmed for like 8 years. I had Stan Lee and Frank Miller and Neil Adams and Mark Silvestri in the can. And so I went into this Kickstarter already having the film 3/4 of the way done. Really what I needed to fund was the images that I use, the comic book images, because, to tell a story on comic books, you have to have images.
So again, this is not about how to do Kickstarter. That's tomorrow. This is about whether you should self-fund or do Kickstarter.
I think my point is I think that Kickstarter and crowdfunding is for some and not for others. So I think you really have to decide what your goal is.
And if my opinion is that it's not for me, that's okay.
Yeah, and if your opinion is and it works for you, that's great too. Now, if I do another film, I'm sure I'll be able to make my goal, because I'll have learned a lot and I've built my audience over the time. But
yes, so Kickstarter, if you take away nothing, take away this. Kickstarter, if you use it, is business 101 for hippies and creatives.
But I spent 13 years on the film, and if I do another film, I would rather find investors than to Kickstarter. But that's my opinion.
All right, if you go through Diamond, you have a 4-month period before you can get your book in previews, and then after your book hits the racks and sells, it takes 6 months to get that money from Diamond, so that's nearly a year that you got to wait for your money.
And they take 60%. Don't forget the 60% part of
It
that.
takes 6 months.
But it does take 60%.
And then if
You sell
through
your
conventions-
books wholesale.
If you sell through conventions, then you also have to lay down your money for the tables in advance. And if you're in a convention cycle, you basically have like I'd estimate Russell, like you have somewhere in the 10s to 20 a grand money that's just constantly cycling from convention to convention to convention that you've earned, but you never get to spend because it's spent on the next convention. So it seems to me like Kickstarter is the way to go if you want to avoid this cash liquidity trap where your money gets tied up in third parties.
Well, one of the nice things about doing a crowdfunding campaign is you then. So I do a lot of books a year. I don't do one issue. I do 5 books, roughly a year. And Kickstarter allows me to do 5 books instead of 5 single issues. So yes, I do have things that are tied up and consistently having to pay for Silicon Valley or Comic-Con or some book that I have to do. And Kickstarter or any pre-validation product launch platform that you use, whether it's your own site or it's Kickstarter or it's Indiegogo, no matter what you use, having that validation platform beforehand lets me know that in 6 months when this book comes out, when they come in from China, when it's done and it's in the backer's hands, I know that I've at least paid for the cost of the books and that there is an audience for it, because I want a publisher's profit comes from a back catalog.
That's true. So, yes. Okay.
So where you're saying that you create a following to get people to actually want to fund you on Kickstarter and have some type of branding already, are you against branding?
No, I'm not against branding. I am against seeking validation through crowdfunding. I think, and it's been my experience, that you make the thing that you're passionate about and you take it out to the streets. You keep the excitement contained to the product. An old school method, yeah. I think it takes a lot of the air out of the excitement of the project.
I think it adds air to the excitement.
So wasn't that an interesting discussion? Honestly, I had my dukes up. I was expecting a bare knuckle boxing match. I was expecting the fangs to come out. But it ended up being an incredibly civil and informative discussion. I know I learned a lot on it, and I hope you did too. I now better understand the mindset of at least one self-funded person who is completely against Kickstarter. And the reasons why very much surprised me. I didn't realize it was about creating something and then releasing it once it's all done. Because to me, that's antithetical to my entire purpose. I want to create in front of people. Whether I use Kickstarter or not, I want you to be involved in the process. I want you to have a stake in the project. Emotionally, I want you to be able to see how we're doing everything that we're doing. I think that process